Hello there. Here I am over here. You ate all of your dinner, and you've been good today? Oh, wonderful. Now you climb right up into bed. Good. Now let me see. Oh, I know a wonderful, wonderful story. Once upon a time, in the beautiful forest, there was a lovely little cottage, and a fine forest family lived in it. There was Papa Bear. Did you hear that? He said, "Hello, I am Papa Bear." Say it again, Papa Bear. Then there was Mama Bear and Baby Bear. They were all very happy together. One day, they all sat down to dinner. Now listen carefully, and I'll translate what they say. "My porridge is too hot," said Papa. "My porridge is too cold," said Mama. "My porridge is just right," said the baby. But Papa Bear told Mama Bear to put the porridge back in the kettle, which she did. Then she served it up again in Papa's big bowl, in her medium-sized bowl, and in the baby's little bowl. And then they all went out to take a walk and let the porridge cool. Now, wandering through the forest was a little girl who was lost in the woods. She had rosy pink skin and pretty blue eyes and golden yellow hair, and that is why everyone called her Goldilocks. Poor Goldilocks. She was cold and tired and hungry. But then, as luck would have it, she came upon the little cottage. She went in, and when she saw the open door and the warm fire in the hearth, she thought, "Oh, look here, 3 bowls of porridge, and I am so hungry." So she tasted the big bowl, but it was too hot. Then she tasted the middle bowl, and it was too cold. Then she tasted the little bowl, and it was just right. So she ate it all up. Goldilocks was so tired. The other end of the room were 3 beds, so she climbed in the first bed. Oh, but it was too hard. She climbed in the second bed. Oh, it was too soft. She climbed in the third bed, and it was just right. And so she fell fast asleep. Soon the bear family was coming home. They all sat down at the table when suddenly Papa said, "Someone's been eating my porridge," said Mama Bear. Said Baby Bear, "And it's all gone." Suddenly, they looked toward the beds. "Someone's been sleeping in my bed," said Papa Bear. Said Mama Bear. Said Baby Bear. "And she's still there." Baby Bear made so much noise that he woke up little Goldilocks. When she saw the 3 bears, my goodness, was she scared. Goldilocks jumped up and ran and ran. She ran so fast and she ran so hard that without thinking she found her way right out of the forest and back to her own house. My, she thought, if it weren't for those bears, I would never have found my way home. And do you know what Papa Bear said? He said, I don't know why she was so scared. I was going to ask her to stay to dinner. Once upon a time, there was a miller who left everything he had to his 3 sons. The eldest received the mill. The second son inherited the donkey. But the youngest son got only the cat. The boy thought, my brothers can share the mill and the donkey and live very well. But what can I do with a cat? He's not even good to eat. To the boy's surprise, the cat spoke to him. Do not fret, my master. Just give me a bag and a pair of boots, and you will see what I can do. Since the cat could talk, the boy thought, perhaps he could do other amazing things. So he gave him a pair of stout boots and a game bag. So Puss in Boots went into a briar patch where the rabbits lived. He put bait in the bag and laid down and played dead. Soon a fat young rabbit took the bait, and Puss in Boots jumped up and caught him and immediately went to the castle and presented it to His Majesty the King. Puss in Boots said, Sire, I bring a rabbit from my noble lord, the Marquis of Marbas, with his compliments. Tell your master we are pleased, said the king. Then Puss in Boots hid in the cornfields and snared some partridges. Then he went to the castle and presented them to the king. The king thanked him and presented him with a bag of gold. In this way, for many months, he kept the miller's son from starving. Then one day, Puss in Boots heard that the king and his beautiful daughter would be driving near the river. So he told the miller's son to go to the river and bathe at a spot where the river runs closest to the road. Well, the boy thought it was a silly thing to do. But Puss in Boots had brought him a purse of gold, so he decided to do it. The miller's son was bathing in the river when the king's coach passed by. Suddenly, Puss in Boots jumped onto the road, shouting, Help! Help! My lord the Marquis of Marbas is drowning! The king ordered his guards to help the drowning Marquis. All the while, Puss in Boots shouted, Stop thief! Stop thief! And he told the king how robbers had stolen his master's coach and clothes. Well, the king sent for one of his finest suits to cover the poor Marquis's body. In the king's clothes, the miller's son really looked like a marquis, and the princess fell madly in love with him. Puss in Boots decided to carry the plot even further. So as his master got into the coach with the king and the princess, Puss ran ahead. When he came to some farmers in a meadow, he said, If you don't tell the king that this land belongs to the Marquis of Marbas, it will go badly for you. When His Majesty drove by, the farmer shouted, To the great Marquis of Marbas! Then Puss in Boots ran on to a cornfield and shouted, If you do not say this corn belongs to the Marquis of Marbas, you will be ground to mincemeat. Of course, he was only joking, but they were so frightened that when the king drove by, they shouted, To the great Marquis of Marbas! The king was amazed at the Marquis's estates, and the miller's son was even more amazed. Puss in Boots ran on ahead to the house of a rich ogre who really owned all the lands. He said to the ogre, "Tell me, is it true you can change yourself into anything? A lion, perhaps?" "Of course," said the ogre. "Look!" And the ogre turned into a lion right before his eyes. Puss in Boots leaped onto the roof to keep from being eaten. When the lion had turned back into the ogre, Puss in Boots said, "Is it true that you can also make yourself into a tiny thing, like a mouse?" "Simple," boasted the ogre, and suddenly he had turned into a mouse. And before the ogre could move a muscle, Puss in Boots pounced on him and ate the mouse right up. Puss ran out onto the steps of the castle and shouted, "Welcome to the castle of my lord, the Marquis of Marbas." Well, the king thought, "My, what a wonderful match for my daughter." And the princess thought, "How lucky the man I love is so handsome and rich." The miller's son thought, "My goodness, he is a clever cat." And Puss, why, when the princess and the miller's son were married, he became the royal cat. And they all lived happily ever after. There was once a sweet little girl who was loved by all, and she certainly loved them too. Her grandmother made her a little red hooded cape, and the little girl liked it so much she wore it everywhere she went. And so she got the nickname Little Red Riding Hood. One morning, her mother said, "Your grandmother is ill. Oh, it will do her good to see you. So take these cakes and this fresh bread to her house in the woods. Now take this basket and hurry, but be careful not to trip and hurt yourself." Off she went through the woods. Now in the woods there lived a big, bad wolf. And when he saw the flash of red at the cape, he knew it was the tender little girl. Red Riding Hood's mother had told her not to waste time, and her mother had taught her to be trusting. So when the wolf came up to her, she didn't know that he was bad. "Good morning," said the wolf. "Good morning," said Red Riding Hood. The wolf asked, "Where are you going?" And she said, "To grandmother's house." "What's in the basket?" asked the wolf. And Red Riding Hood told him of the bread and cakes. "It's such a beautiful day," said the wolf. "Why don't you pick some flowers to take to your poor sick granny?" What a wonderful idea, thought Red Riding Hood. And so, forgetting what her mother had said about not wasting time, and forgetting that her mother had also told her never to talk to strangers, Red Riding Hood started gathering flowers at the edge of the wood. The wolf smacked his lips and thought about this tender morsel. "If I'm lucky," he thought, "I can gobble up Grandma, too." The wolf ran through the woods to Granny's house and knocked on the door. "Who is it?" called Grandmother in a weak voice. "It's Red Riding Hood." "I mean, it's Red Riding Hood," squeaked the wolf in his best little girl imitation. "Well, come in, dear," said Grandmother. And before she knew it, the wolf ran in. He leaped after Grandma. Round and round they ran, and before they stopped, the wolf opened his mouth and swallowed Grandma in one gulp. Then the wolf went to the closet. He put on a nightgown and a cap and climbed into the bed. Red Riding Hood came to the cabin and was very surprised to see the door open. She walked right in. Everything seemed dark and silent. She called, but no one answered. She went into the bedroom, and Grandmother seemed to be sleeping in the bed. "Why, Grandmother, what big ears you have!" cried Red Riding Hood. "The better to hear you with, my dear," said the wolf. "My, what big eyes you have," said Red Riding Hood. "The better to see you with, my dear," said the wolf. But Grandmother, what big teeth you have." "All the better to eat you with," growled the wolf. The wolf sprang out of bed and ran after poor little Red Riding Hood, and quick as a wink, he opened his mouth wide and swallowed Red Riding Hood right up. The wolf smiled, climbed back into bed, and soon was fast asleep. A woodsman passed by the cottage, and he heard the loud snoring. "Why, there must be something wrong with Granny," he thought. "I never heard her snore so loudly before." So he went into the house, and there he saw the wolf asleep in the bed. He couldn't imagine what he was doing there, but he must have been up to no good. So he pulled out his hunting knife and slit the wolf wide open. And right out of the wolf's tummy hopped Red Riding Hood. And after that, out came Grandmother. Well, they thanked the woodsman for saving them from that big old wolf. And Red Riding Hood promised never, never to waste time or to ever talk to strangers again.